In this GlassTrax training video, I'll be covering how inventory is added to GlassTrax and how inventory is consumed. So basically giving you the in of inventory and the out of inventory all in one video. There are three ways to add inventory to GlassTrax. The first way is the most simple. You come to inventory control, scroll over to the right, and go to physical inventory procedures, enter physical counts. So you're doing a physical count here. Now I can go ahead and fill out these filters here, and I can go ahead and get rid of this category if I'm doing all inventory, but in this case I'm just doing my single light or monolithic glass, and I'm going to leave this count remnant / homogeneous unchecked. By leaving that unchecked, it's only going to display items that have a standard size defined, and it's only going to list the standard sizes. If I check this box, what it's going to do is it's going to show you non-standard sizes, non-stock sheet sizes such as drops, and I'll ask you to put in the square footage amounts of those drops if you'd like to do that. But for this video, I'm going to go ahead and leave that unchecked and hit display. It's going to go ahead and populate my items along with my stock sheet sizes that I've defined, what we currently have set in GlassTrax for inventory, and then over here you go ahead and enter in what you've actually counted. So in this case, this is a 12 by 12 1/32 glass, a phone screen maybe. I'm going to go ahead and say, hey, we've got 15 of those. Now notice I type in 15, it comes in down here, I hit enter, and now it bounces up here. For this 1/4 inch clear 48 by 129, I'm going to go ahead and say, it says I have 15, I actually count, I only have 13. For 1/4 inch 48.96, it says I have 635. That's actually accurate, so I'm going to hit enter and just go through. An 1/8 glass, 150 pieces, I actually only have 123. And you can see how this just keeps going on and on here. Now you can update costs on the fly right here by clicking the update costs button. You can also import a spreadsheet if you have that. Once you're done putting these all in, you will post this. It's going to ask you if you want to print this first. You can go ahead and print a variance report if you'd like. I'm going to go ahead and cancel that. And it's going to ask you for a GL offset account. So basically this is going to go ahead and say, well, let's say you have $1 million valuation on your inventory for your inventory GL account. But when you're done counting, you're actually only at $950,000. So there's a $50,000 variance there. So when you go ahead and put this in, it's going to be a $50,000 inventory adjustment variance in order to balance out the transaction to get your inventory to be reflected accurately for value in the inventory GL account. So you would want to use a different GL account here, such as inventory adjustments or inventory variance or something like that. If you don't know which account to use, you can always click the binoculars and scroll through your list of accounts. If you do not have an inventory adjustments account, I would strongly recommend adding one if you're going to be using physical counts. Once you're done putting that account in, you hit the post button, and it goes ahead and updates your counts within GlassTrax as well as updating your inventory GL account. So that's the first way to do this. The second way is also very easy. It's done through purchases. There's a video here on how to enter purchase orders. I would recommend looking at that one if you don't know how to do a purchase order, because I'm going to just briefly skim this. You'd go to purchases, enter purchase orders, you'd fill out your vendor, you'd fill out the date, you'd put in the non-material costs if there are, such as freight, you'd put in the items, the quantity, the pricing for those items, and then you'd go ahead and obviously print that out or save it. And then when it comes from your vendor, you go to receive inventory, you'd fill out your PO number in this field right here, and you would go ahead and receive in your inventory. Once you've received your inventory in, you hit the post button, which is currently grayed out here, but you click here, and it will also update your inventory to reflect this receiving. So that's the second way. The third way is a little more complicated, but it is still fairly simple. It's just a manual inventory adjustment is what we call it. And that is done through inventory control, reports and inquiries, inventory inquiry right here. Now I'm going to bring in that 1/4 inch clear that we were looking at previously. I have 15 pieces. I believe I said we counted, we only had 13 pieces. So we'll go ahead and say that. So I need to go ahead, click on this line with this stock sheet, adjust the quantity down here. The new pieces, it's not asking for, hey, it's 17 pieces, so I type in 2 more. It's asking for the actual count now. So if it were 17, I'd type in 17, but we said it was 13. And it's going to go ahead and credit your inventory and debit an offset account. Now this would be your inventory adjustment account or inventory variance account once again. Put in your date, and when you hit save, it's going to update your inventory accounts as well as your inventory account so that you are in balance as well as having an accurate reflection of your value of inventory. So those are the three ways to add inventory to GlassTrax. There are also a couple ways to consume inventory within GlassTrax. Now, most of our customers, what they'll do is the way that GlassTrax was set up initially, but there are more and more people who are using a newer format to consume inventory, and I'll cover both right here. So the first way that you would consume inventory is through a homogeneous consumption. Basically, what you do is you come here to the feature initialization and make sure that feature 2334 is set to yes, to consume stock inventory or convert it to stock inventory to homogeneous when you are posting invoices. So basically that would pull my 96 by 130. If I'm selling a piece of 48 by 48, it's going to go ahead and consume at least one stock sheet for that. It's going to assume a yield. Now, to assume your yield, it's 2334B. And you can go ahead and say, right now I've set to 100% yield, meaning I'm not losing any glass. I wish that were the case. Just for your information, industry norm is about 80% yield and 20% scrap loss. So you would put in 80% there is what you'd have if you were estimating a yield. So this is based on estimates. If you have, you'd send out your batch export to your cutting table, and based on what we have there, we'd say, okay, well, we're going to have 20% scrap loss on this, and therefore it's going to consume this many stock sheets to produce these orders on this batch cutting process. So that's one way. There are a lot of assumptions made there, so it's not as accurate, but it is pretty close if you know your yield. The new way is a little more accurate, and it does require the guys on the floor to have a barcode scanner. So a lot of you know barcode scanning is very useful for production, but it's also very useful for consuming inventory. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to launch this HTTP listener. This always has to be listening to use barcode scanning within GlassTrax, and you have to have a default inventory account defined right here. So this is the account that gets debited or credited as you consume or add inventory, right? In this case, I'm going to go ahead and consume inventory. So I'm going to go ahead and pull this up and go to consume stock sheets. And all you have to do now is just scan the barcode, which the barcode would contain the item ID and then a delimiter of some kind, like a percentage sign, the size 1, 96, delimiter, size 2, 130, and it would go ahead and consume one piece at a time, which I've got right here. You can update that if you need to. But as you just barcode scan and say, hey, I'm pulling a stock sheet off of the rack to take to the cutting table, and I'm just going to go ahead and say this whole stock sheet is now gone, and it will update GlassTrax accordingly. And then if there are any drops, basically those are available in your inventory as what we would consider 100% profit drops, right? The consumption here takes into account your profitability for the orders, and then anything left over is just is pure profit that you can sell. So that's the second easy way that we've added recently. It's a new feature. People are starting to switch to this awesome option just because it's so easy for the guys to just barcode scan, grab the sheet of glass, put it on the cutting table, and it's done. And you don't have to worry about assumptions of yields and scrap loss. And anyway, those are the ways that GlassTrax manages inventory when it comes in, those 3 ways, and when it goes out, those 2 ways that I showed you. If you have any questions about this, please feel free to reach out to us. We're happy to answer any questions for you.